Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard series. So this is the Monday video that I decided to make for you guys. One, because I promised you guys 2 videos on Sunday and I only gave you 1, and 2, because I won't be able to make as many videos this week because I'm going on a trip to Nationals. So, I will be recording at Nationals, for those of you wondering. It just depends on if I get good internet service at the hotel or not that I'm staying at. But beyond that, yeah, let's get started, guys. So to this one, this future fight, we're going to be focusing on Chaos Breaker, or more specifically the Link Joker GB8, which in my opinion is only good within Chaos Breaker because of the way that it's worded and all of it that it works. You could use it with Messiahs, but like it's just not as great. You could use it with an Excelix build of Messiahs, but yeah, it's just not that great basically. But yeah, let's get right into it. I think I was trying to say something to you guys, but I forgot what I was gonna say. So yeah, we're unflipping all of our G-Zone cards. So we are going to talk about our grade 3s first. As usual, we have 9 grade 3s in this build specifically, and I think it's just because we wanted to run 2 Legions so that we don't deck out. Credits to Nick from Team Sunshine Arena, I think it is. Team Sunshine, something like that. This is kind of similar to the build that he played against me at Jacksonville. So that's where I got like the inspiration to build it from. So yeah, credits to him. But we do run 4 Chaos Breaker Dragon. It is like the I don't know, butter to our bread or something like that. It's basically like what the deck revolves around. So it has 3 abilities. One is a Limit Break 4 ability that says during your opponent's end phase, when your opponent unlocks one of their cards, you can Soul Blast 1 Starvader card, you retire that unit, and you draw a card. So this is the card that basically, or this is the skill that basically carries the whole entire deck on its back. This skill is pretty much amazing, Limit Break 4, and it like doesn't even matter if you're Limit Break 4 or not because you have Charcoal. It only matters when you don't have Charcoal on your field, but there's an easy way to get it through the starter. So yeah, its second ability is an activation ability that says Counterboss 1 and choose a Starvader from your hand and discard it. If you do, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, lock it. So this is pretty much useful for when you ride to grade 3 first on your opponent and you want to lock one of their rearguards to start it off early. You can start off Carbon and all of that stuff early. So then its third ability is Lord, which says that if you have a unit without the same clan as this unit cannot attack. So Lord does not apply because Bushiroad has now required us to make decks with all the same clan in it. So yeah, just don't pay attention to Lord in the deck. We also thought that Lord gets around Nubatama dominating the Vanguard when New Shiranui comes out, but there was a ruling saying that Lord Vanguards still do attack. So yeah, that's a thing. But we have 3 Chaos Bringer, Starvader Chaos Bringer. So what Chaos Bringer does is Limit Break 4, Counterblast 1. At the beginning of your opponent's main phase, if the number of your opponent's units that are locked are 2 or more, you can search your deck for up to 1 card named Chaos Breaker Dragon from your deck and write it as stand and shuffle your deck. So Chaos Bringer allows you a superior ride from your deck into Chaos Breaker as long as you have 2 locked cards on your opponent's card, as long as you've locked 2 of your opponent's cards and your Limit Break 4. So sometimes you don't want to go into this initially if you have Chaos Breaker already. Like me personally, I just prefer to go into Chaos Breaker immediately. From Nick's point of view, he prefers to go into Chaos Breaker because it's like an easier lock for him. Plus with Chaos Breaker, you don't have to discard. Chaos Bringer, you don't have to discard to lock. So Counterblast, basically Chaos Bringer's skill is Counterblast 1 Starvader. When it's placed on Vanguard Circle, choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the back row, usually their starter, and lock it. So it's a really good starter hate. And then it helps you superior ride into Chaos Breaker with an extra soul, an extra Starvader soul in there, so pretty good. We run 2 Garnet Star Dragon. These are legions. So first of all, it legions with Photon in our deck. So Legion, for those of you who don't know, if you happen to not know for some reason, Legion is a mechanic in Vanguard where you choose 4 cards from your drop zone, no more, no less, and put them back into your deck, and then you get to search for the card that it says within the quotation marks on the card, and then you put them together, and both of them are your Vanguard for the turn, or from now on, until you write a new card, basically. So it's when it says Legion and then it says a number, like it says Legion 20,000. In this case, your Vanguard's attack power on your offensive turn is 20,000, but on a defense turn, you would just use your 11k as the base for guarding, because 20k power on a defensive turn without doing anything for it would be broken. So then it has an ability that says when this unit performs Legion, choose a rear guard from your opponent's front row and back row and lock them, and that's about it. And then this other ability that it has is when this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gets plus 2,000 power. So when it attacks your Vanguard in Legion, it is actually 22k by itself, which is a good number on 11ks. So then we have 4 Companion Star Starvader Photon. When it's placed on Rearguard Circle and you have a Starvader Vanguard and your opponent has a locked card, you can choose one of your opponent's rearguards and lock it. So pretty good for getting more locks on your opponent. We run 4 Disorder Starvader Iron. So what Iron does is it's a Chaos specific card. So it's a Chaos 11k attacker. When it attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Chaos in its name, it gets 2,000 power. So it attacks for 11k always, pretty much until you go into Garnet Star, and then it's 9k. And then its other ability is when it's placed on Rearguard, if you have a Chaos Vanguard, counterboss 1, and your opponent has a locked card, then they choose one of their rearguards and lock it. So also a very solid card. It's pretty much a Photon, but you have to counterboss 1 for it, and you have to have a Chaos Vanguard. Then we have 3 Starvader Colony Maker. Colony Maker is basically Sword Me for our deck, which means Sword Me is a card in Royal Paladins that you play it and you counterboss 1 and you get a grade 1 with Jewel Knight in its name. So Colony Maker does the same thing. You counterboss 1 when it's placed on Rearguard Circle. If you have a Link Joker Vanguard, which you should always have, and if your opponent has a locked card, then you can counterboss 1, search your deck for a grade 1 or less with Starvader in its name, and call it to Rearguard Circle. Now, something to be noted off of this, a lot of people think that you only call grade 1s off of it, but you can also call Paradigm Shift Dragon, and then use the skill to get another lock off. So, yeah, do be wary of that. Then we have 3 Destiny Dealer. Our Stride Fodder, pretty self-explanatory. We run 4 Unflipped PGs because we value our Counterblast in this deck. We also run 4 Zinc because we value our Counterblast and our Soul. So what Zinc does is it has an activation ability when it's on the Rearguard Circle. You can shove this card into Soul. Then if you have a Chaos Vanguard and your opponent has a locked card, you... Oh, I didn't even notice that your opponent has to have a locked card. I think I misused that in some places. But yeah, beware of that. And then you counter charge 2 and soul charge 2. So then we have 2 Eclipse Starvader Charcoal. This is our limit break enabler. Pretty easy to get off with Carbon. It's usually our first target for Carbon. So Carbon is our starter and says if your opponent has a locked card, search your deck for 1 grade 1 or less with Starvader in its name, and it can't be a Carbon because then you would be able to run multiple Carbons and thin out your deck by 5 cards or 4 cards or something like that, and that would be ridiculous. You would also be able to fuel your soul like a lot for Chaos Breaker, so it would basically be broken. So you have to call a card not called Carbon. Usually we call the Limit Break Enabler because usually we're under 4 damage when we first are doing this, so we want to ensure that any locked cards on their board are going to get retired by Chaos Breaker. So then we run 12 crit, 4 Starvader Paradigm Shift Dragon. What this card does is during the main phase you can play it on the Rearguard Circle, then activate the skill. You put this unit to the top of your deck, and if you have a Vanguard with Starvader in its name and your opponent has a locked card, choose one of your rearguards in your opponent's back row, and then you lock it, and then you shuffle your deck. The other two vanillas are vanilla crit triggers, but they are Starvaders. And then we use Demise Lit by Light Karina. So Karina is our new Fighters Collection heal trigger. And basically it allows us to countercharge one for the cost of a Soul Blast if we go into the new G Guardian, and then we have one face-up damage. Yeah, one face-up damage or less. So one face-up damage or no face-up damage. Moving into our G Zone, we have 4 Death Starvader Chaos Universe. So Chaos Universe, very solid card. Actually allows you to get off most of your things when your opponent tells you that they didn't want to play any rear guards or anything like that. This is a way to get around that. So what Chaos Universe does is you counterboss one and you flip a Chaos Universe from your G-Zone face up. Then if you have a heart card with Chaos in its name, which you always should in the early game, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards without a card. Your opponent has to choose a card from their hand and put it into the rear guard face down as lock. And then if you have 2 face-up cards in your G-Zone or more, then you can choose another one of your opponent's rear guards and lock it. So what this card allows you to do is, first of all, they lose a card from their hand because you're essentially making them play a card from their hand to the board as locked, and then when that card becomes unlocked, it's going to die to Chaos Breaker. So very solid skill. Then we have 4 Big Crunch Dragon. Big Crunch Dragon just says act skill counterboss 1, flip a Big Crunch in your G-Zone, and if the number of cards in your G-Zone is 2 or more, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and then you lock all the rear guards in the same column as that unit. So columns are vertical. So you choose a unit, and you can lock the column, meaning that you can lock resist units. If the resist unit's in the back row or the front row, you can just choose the other unit that's with it, and then you lock that whole column. So this gets around resist pretty well, and then it also mega locks the cards, meaning that they can't be unlocked for 2 turns instead of 1. So then we run one of the GB8, Genesis Machine Deity Ortho Wilder. So what Ortho Wilder does is it has a Generation Break ability that is during the main phase. You counterboss 1 and discard 2 cards from your hand, and then for each card in your opponent's damage zone, you choose one of your opponent's open rearguard circle, and your opponent has to put a card from their hand into the rearguard circle as a locked card. So this is a amazing card used under the right scenarios, and you guys will see that as it forces your opponent, if they're at 5 damage and they have 5 open rearguard circles, forces your opponent to play 5 cards from their hand to locked as their rearguard circle. So not only do they lose 5 cards from their hand and it makes it a struggle for them to guard, however, they don't have rearguards the next turn because they're all locked. So they can't do anything but just attack with their Vanguard. So very solid GB8. Then we run 2 Amnesty Messiah for the mirror match. We didn't come up against the mirror match in our playtest, but it's pretty much for the mirror match of Link Joker in general. When this card attacks a Vanguard, you can counterboss 1. You choose any number of locked cards, unlock them, and then this unit gets plus 3,000 power for every card unlocked. And then if you unlock 3 or more, it gets a critical. So you basically go into it when you're against Messiahs or another Starvader deck. Then we run 5 G Guardians, 2 Lactis Karina. Lactis Karina is their new Fighters Collection G Guardian. That's really, really solid card, like really, really good, honestly, because it allows you to lock cards during your opponent's battle phase. But unfortunately, it only locks back row. I guess it would be too broken if it locked front row. But when this card is placed on the Guardian Circle, you can counterboss 1 and flip a G Guard. And then if you do, you can choose up to 3 of your cards and lock them. And then you choose up to 3 of your opponent's rear guards in the back row. Your opponent chooses a unit in their back row for each card that was locked and locks it. So you pretty much just want to lock a card for every back row that your opponent has so that they're forced to lock all their back rows. And then at the end of the turn, when they unlock, they'll die to Chaos Breaker, so that's really good. Then we have 2 Destiny Guardian in the slight situation that we have to unlock to get guard, like our opponent's pressuring us really hard. And then we have 1 Demon Maxwell. Demon Maxwell says when it's placed on the guard circle, we choose a unit in our back row and lock it, and then this unit gets plus 5,000 shield. So kind of solid G Guardian, not the best G Guard in this deck, but it is what it is because we didn't want to use the Cray Elementals because they don't get guard for free, basically. So, yeah. Moving into our GB8 games, we have our Chaos GB1 game. So here we're against Sweep Command. Looks like, so we start off the game first. We ride, our opponent rides and then attacks us, and then we attack and we check a heal trigger, and then he goes into his grade 2, which is Chojun, which when it hits, it retires one of my cards. So I went for the 1 to pass, hoping that he wouldn't get it, but he got a crit, which kind of put me at an extreme disadvantage from the get-go. We use Chaos Breaker skill when we ride it to lock his starter, and then we use Photon to lock his other rear guard. And we check 2 cards, a Photon and a PG. And then he checks a draw trigger. So right here, we probably should have taken the Zorus just so that we could be at 4 damage and get rid of his cards and whatnot. But we decided to PG it just because I didn't want him to start off getting Thunderstrike and stuff like that. So we actually make him play a card from his hand with Chaos Universe. And then we attack his rear guard because otherwise he would intercept and get a skill off of it. Then our Vanguard checks a heal trigger during its checks, and he doesn't check any thing during his damage checks, so we attack him for 14. He takes it. Then next turn he strides into Conquest Dragon and uses a skill to retire one of our rear guards. Then he uses Cohen to retire one of both of our cards, and then he retires his crit. His crit goes back to the deck and gets him an Eradicator card. Then he attacks for 31. We no guard. He checks a critical trigger and a heal trigger, so pretty lucky for him. We check a crit trigger and a crit trigger, which is not really useful to us except for power, so we just take it just so that we can be 4 damage at this point and get rid of 2 of his cards and draw 2 cards because we didn't have Stride Fodder. We do draw into Stride Fodder, and then we go into Big Crunch Dragon, and then we just attack his Vanguard. We do check a crit, and I thought we were going to double crit because we do run 12 criticals in this deck, but unfortunately we're not that lucky. So he break rides into Sweep Command, and then he attacks our Vanguard with Voltage. So we G-Guard into Demon Maxwell, and then we G-Guard again into Lactus Karina, activating the skill, even though we can't use it, just to get GB8, basically. He checks a draw trigger, gives it to his rear guard, and then he checks another heal trigger. So he goes back down, which is really lucky for him again. So then we check a heal. We go down 1, which I'd rather have that heal in my hand, but it is what it is. Then we go into Chaos Universe because he healed, basically. We decided to make him put 1 behind Vanguard, and then we lock the grade 2. And then basically I checked my soul right here, and I only had 2 Starvader cards in there. So I wanted to use the Zinc so that I would be able to lock or retire his entire field once it gets unlocked. So he also uses the Flip G Guardian to get to GB8. So we check a PG right there, which is super helpful. But he goes into the GB8, I think a little prematurely, in my opinion. But yeah, he goes into the GB8. I bind all the cards in my drop zone, which are not really important to me anyways. And then he plays a rear guard, I guess to avoid getting GB8'd to the full effect, but him playing a rear guard is the same as us getting a rear guard out of him, so, or getting a card out of his hand. So we will take those as well. We could have taken the GB8 had we not checked the PG, because we would have no guarded, and then we would have took 1 damage, so would have been in a better position. But we do go into the GB8 here, use the GB8 skill to discard 2 cards and make him play 4 cards to his rearguard circle as locked. And honestly, I thought that I had him here, but he actually had a PG still. So we do shuffle a crit back to our deck, and then we attack. And I thought we were going to check 2 crits and be able to put 1 on each side. Which for that, I probably should have put back the other crit in my hand as well. But it wouldn't have mattered because he just ended up using the skill of the G Guardian, so I should have attacked with with the rear guard first. But he strides this time and goes into VMAX IPG so that I won't get gimped by VMAX's ability. He checks the heal trigger again. I'm pretty sure this is like the third turn where he's checked the heal trigger and gone down because of it. So we take a damage because of VMAX, and we Soul Blast and draw. And then we ride into Garnet Star. And we perform Legion only to fail, basically, because all of our stride fighters are in the bind zone. Which is fine. We only run this PG to not deck out anyway, so it's fine if we Legion or don't Legion, as long as we can put cards back. So we play 2 rear guards, and then we play a grade 1. We attack his rear guard. And then he has a PG and a G guard, so he's pretty much good for the rest of the game here. However, he does no guard here, and we don't check anything. Even though we had, I believe, 2 to 3 crits left in our deck, and our deck was like 6 cards or something. So we just happened to check one of the 2 out of the 3 cards that weren't crits. And then here, our opponent goes into Voltage. We have pretty much a billion cards in the bind zone. We can't guard this, so we just take it, and then that is the end of the first game. So pretty much I think that we lost that game because we couldn't help that our opponent healed every turn, basically. Because Chaos Breaker depends on your opponent kind of being at a high damage so that they have to guard everything, because everything has like a fear of crits attached to it. So if our opponent has no fear of the crits, then they can just take a bunch of things, and we don't want them to be able to do that usually. So, our next game we're against Aqua Force. It looks like it's going to be Transcore, which I haven't seen played in a long time, so it's actually kind of interesting. Then he starts off with the regular Aqua Force Rush. We take the first Tidal Assault attack, and then we take the second one, checking a crit trigger. And then he attacks with Vanguard, we no-pass it, and then he checks a crit, giving to rear guard, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the luck. So coming off the last game, I was not happy about that first game, or that first turn doing that. But we attack the Tidal Assault, we check a crit. He decides to not ride into grade 3, and we kind of forgot that we don't run Sabreeze in this deck, which I was going to tell you guys can switch out one Amnesty with Sabreeze, because there was multiple times that we could have Sabreezed, basically, in our playtests. But it's also fine if you don't Sabreeze, because you have Chaos Breaker Dragon, of course. So we use Chaos Breaker Dragon, and then that's why I counterbusted 2 and discarded 1, because I thought I had Sabreeze, but I didn't. So I just used the crit trigger skill instead to lock his starter, and then I attack his Vanguard for 18. I check 2 cards, and 1 is a critical. He checks a draw trigger and a critical off of his checks. So he rides Revon, and then he doesn't stride, surprisingly. So then we 2 to pass him, and then he checks a crit, which was the thing that I was hoping that he wouldn't check, because it made things a lot more difficult. And then we use Soul Blast 2 to draw 2 cards, and then we stride into Chaos Universe, making him play 1 from his hand to the front rear guard circle. And then we just attack his Vanguard. He no guards. Again, we thought that we would double crit, but we don't get any at all. So then our opponent strides into the on-hit Aqua Force stride, I believe. Yeah, Tidal Bore. So our opponent attacks with Tidal Assault for the first attack, Suesha from the back row for the second attack, Vanguard for the third. I no guard it because I realized that even if I G guarded, like, it wouldn't make much of a difference because our G guards like don't really have a lot of power. So we just had to hope that he didn't check a critical here, which he did not, which is good for us. And we end up checking a critical on our damage check, which makes us avoid that last attack from Tidal Assault. So we go into Chaos Universe here. We use Universe skill to counter boss 1, make him call a card from his hand as locked, and then we lock the Tidal Assault. Then we play Iron and lock his card, and then we play another Iron and lock his card, and then we go for Zinc and Soul Blast 2 and unflip 2. Then we attack for 11, he no guards. Then we attack for 33, he PGs. And we don't check any triggers. At this point, I'm like, Chaos Breaker hates me because we don't check any triggers on any of our drive checks, I'm pretty sure, like for most of our games. But our opponent strides into Commander Thavis. They actually end up sending Commander Thavis back, I guess because they realized that they wouldn't have any good cards to call off of it. So he goes into the on-hit Mithril Core Dragon. We PG it. And then he checks a grade 3, a 1, and a 2. So I thought that he didn't have a PG. So I thought that we were pretty set on that. But we do use Chaos Breaker's skill to retire most of his cards. And when we unlock, we use Big Crunch to Mega Lock his card. Then we attack for 33. He PGs it. And we don't check any triggers as usual. Then we attack for 18. He guards with a 10k so it doesn't hit. Then he goes into Wailing Thavis and plays 4 cards from his hand, which I did not expect. So he attacks with Suatia to Rearguard Circle. Then he attacks with Rearguard, then Vanguard, using the skill to have Wailing Thavis gain 10k and no grade 1s or greater. So we go into our G-Guard, and we get Demon Maxwell, which is what I was talking about, gaining free shield, like why we needed that. So we 3 to pass him here because we didn't trust a 2 pass after how all of our opponents have sacked us up until now, pretty much. So then he checks 1 trigger, which is actually surprising. So then we stride into the GB8. With the GB8 skill, we make him play 2 cards from his hand, meaning that it's still worth to do it, basically, because if one of those cards in his hand had been a PG, he would have had to PG our Vanguard or no guard our Vanguard in hopes that we don't get a crit. So we use the crit ability to lock Suatia, ensuring that there's no shenanigans next turn, and then we move our 7k up so that he has to take at least 1 attack. So we check 2, and then we check a critical. So thank goodness, like we finally checked something, and it ends up ending the game for us. So we did win that one, but maybe barely. I guess I wouldn't say barely because we still had a G-Guard and a PG in our hand, and he was about to attack with a turn that was just his Vanguard and one of his rear guards, so I don't think that he would have won anyways. But you never know. Our opponent could have checked like double heal or something. But going into Chaos Game 3, so Chaos Game 3, we're actually playing against our same Angel Feather friend that we played against for the D-Police video. So he wanted to play Angel Feather against this. So we attack, he no guards, we no guard his attack as a response. So we're just trading no guards at this point, hitting each other and not critting each other, doing anything savage to each other, which is weird. He does stay on grade 2, which is why I was talking about Sabreeze, because it would have been really cool to Sabreeze here. Especially because both times that we could have Sabreezed, we had a Zinc in our hand. So Zinc would have automatically just like been able to unflip the cards used by Sabreeze. So we attack for 18. We check a 2 and a Legion, and then we attack for 12 or 11. Yeah. So we attack for 11. Then our opponent rides Fey League and strides Fey League, which is pretty unfortunate for him actually because he's not able to get advantage off of Gavriel. He uses Fey League skill, and then he uses Altiel. Altiel does the damage tech to give a crit to Vanguard, so we PG it because we don't want to get crit out of the game. Then we Soul Blast 2 in order to draw 2 cards. We use Chaos Universe to lock a card to his front row, and then we play a rear guard and we attack for 33. He no guards my 33. I check a 1, a 3, and a heal trigger, so we do heal. That's good for us. And then we attack for 23, and he G-guards it. And then he strides into Raphael. So Raphael allows him to heal a damage. So he just flips a Raphael face up in his damage zone and he heals the damage, and then he attacks us. So we no guard. He checks 3 non-triggers, but very strong defensive cards basically. So thank goodness he's not on Gavriel, or that might be a pain. We go into Chaos Universe again and decide to make him lock one from his hand to the front row, and then we lock his other card as well. And then we decided to use the skill of Zinc in case we G-guard and use Lactus Karina, because we were basically preparing for the GB8 like on this turn. So he PGs, then he takes the rear guard because he literally cannot guard it, or he can, but he would be wasting like a lot of guard. So he rides Gabriel and strides into yeah, so right here he goes into Altiel. He calls out a Nurse of Broken Heart to his back row circle, which made us really happy actually, because we want to be able to lock his cards off of Karina to show how the setup would kind of go into the GB8. So he's using Altiel's Rescue to rescue 3 cards. So he rescues, checks 3 cards, only gets a stand trigger. So then he attacks us for 42 with his crit skill, and then we could have no guarded it and not been that scared. But we just double G-guard because we want to be GB8. So we use Maxwell to lock a card. Then we lock one of our cards and make him lock Nurse of Broken Heart. And then we 3 to pass him. So he doesn't check any cards off the 3 to pass. And this is when I knew that we pretty much had him at game. Because at the end of his phase, we use Chaos Breaker skill to retire all. And then we use the GB8 skill to make him call 5 locked cards to the rear guard circle, leaving him with only 2 cards in his hand. So it's pretty much impossible for him to guard this assault, because there's going to be 3 attacks and he only has 2 cards in his hand. So yeah, that ends up being game. And that is a perfect example of how to GB8 with Chaos Breaker. But that has been the games and the FutureFight for Link Joker GB8 deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Check out the description, and all the crazy new things happening on the channel should be listed in the description down below. Check out our socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. Thank you for my Patreon supporters. An extra special thank you for you guys. And yeah, the schedule for this week should be the same, except I'm getting on a plane on Thursday, so there might or might not be a Thursday video. I haven't decided yet. However, I plan to record ahead of time so that I will be trying to release some videos for you guys, but I also have work the next 2 days, so I guess we'll just see how this plays out. But yeah, with that being said, that has been the FutureFight. This has been Josh, and I will see you guys the next time I see you. Have a great day.